right, welcome. Session 7, and we're discussing of telling your life story. This is your first time. I entitled it The Learning Tree, talking now about the stage of life of childhood, young childhood memories, and this week I'm up for my 70th birthday, and which I calculated out is actually 25,500 days. And the reason I calculated it in days is because I was thinking, I'm really asking people to commit to 60 days of writing to summarize, if you were to use mine as an average, 25,000 days of life. Is really not asking that much. If you think about it, it's almost like if you were a car trying to go that far on a pit stop, you'd be a miracle car, right? But the point is, it's good to stop and reflect on our life at some point, whether it's at 25,000 days or at 30,000 days and I was calculating my youngest daughter just turned 19, so she's at 6,900 days. And it's never too early to start doing some journaling and writing out of what you've learned so far, and hopefully it'll be some help later on. We'll probably, if she begins journaling, looking at it later, she'll say, oh, how foolish I was as a youth. But, that's all a part of growth. We're on this big overall spectrum of life where, and another way I was thinking about it is we start off as very ordinary people as a child. And then as we go a little further, we sort of aspire to becoming so you might call that a VOP, very ordinary person. And then as we go through our childhood, we're aspiring to maybe be a very important person. Maybe that's our aspiration. We want to get educated, we get into our careers and our midlife time, and hopefully maybe we are becoming a VIP at that point. Then maybe something goes in our life and we, kind of fall a little bit, and maybe we go all the way very important until our retirement, and then we become what I would call a PIP, which would be a previously important person. And that's kind of the stage I feel like now, is that, at one time I was doing a national radio show and different things, and so, I considered myself, even if everyone else didn't, somewhat of a important person. I got to at least interview important people. And so, just in reference of doing that, you become elevated. But then at a certain point, maybe the final stage would be going back to a VOP, a very ordinary person. When we're in our last stages of life, we're not even important. We're not even previously. We're just ordinary, and that's really, we're all really ordinary people. One of the things of memoirs that I wrote on was, what is it about you that makes you unique? And that's actually, I think, a good one, because it causes you to think about the things you've done that make you unique. And so in some ways we're all very extraordinary, and in other ways we're all very ordinary. We have an ordinary life, an ordinary death, and what's in between is what we make of it. But as we look at our childhood learning years, what we learn is as much caught as it is taught, and that's an old saying. That during our early education, we learn everything starting with our ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. We don't even know why. We just think, we're told these are important things. And we all have what you could call a beginner's mind. In other words, we're open to whatever we're taught, and we accept it, and hopefully we fit it together into why it's important. But it allows children this ability to gather a lot of information and then figure out how it all fits. Just as important that what we are taught in classrooms, though, is what we're caught spending time with our friends, parents, grandparents, elders. This is equally and sometimes even more important, because the way we see life lived out affects us more in the real sense, reality world, real world, than the theoretical ideal world of what we're taught out of books and what we're taught out of classrooms. Parker J. Palmer, one of my favorite authors, wrote, when the young and the old connect, it's like joining two poles of a battery. Together, we generate energy for personal and social change that age-segregated societies cut off. The young yearn for us to take an interest in them for their fears, their dreams, and their futures. And one of my other chapters in my memoirs was what was your greatest, I don't want to say regret, but I'm trying to think of what it is now, but I don't have a copy of it. But your greatest thing that you felt like you wish you had that you didn't have. For me, it was having a father figure. And so I was thinking about how important it is for young children to connect with the old and not to be always just with children or just similarly aging people. It's important that they're connected with family or extended family, because it's like he says, two batteries of a pole. You need each other. The young provide the vitality, and the old provide the wisdom. And thinking about it in terms of days, I mean, imagine a 10-year-old's only been around 3,500 days compared to a 100-year-old, 36,000 or whatever it is. So there's just this combined knowledge and wisdom of living through things that benefits the young. Even before children begin to navigate elementary school subjects and socialization, they begin to recognize their own personality, their own strengths and weaknesses. And so family love, which is a form of unconditional love, is vital to children. C.S. Lewis said the glory of family love, which he identifies family love as being different than, he kind of breaks love down into four categories. There's the love of a parent for family. There's eros love, as in romantic. There's friendship love, phileo love, as in choices that you make to love. And then there's agape love, which is an unconditional love, as indicated through God's love toward us, no matter what we do. Family love kind of mirrors that, or tries to, in an ideal situation, that unconditional love. But he says that the glory of family love is that it unites those who would otherwise not come together. The old saying, I didn't choose my family.
Yeah.
And so it brings together those who would ordinarily not come together, and it teaches us first to endure and then to enjoy, hopefully. And this affection causes us to notice the goodness in other people. So we're first modeled in our family how to be accepting and loving, even among people who, like he says, we first endure, and then later we enjoy. So I thought that was very insightful. He's always very insightful. But family love is kind of square one for most of us. If we have that, it can set our course for a fantastic life. If we don't have it, we can oftentimes spend our whole life sort of lost, looking for someone to affirm us, if not our own family. And so thereby you have therapists and people that need therapy, largely. During our preschool days, we also learned the value of friendship. And so this phileo love, or this friendship love, is really, C.S. Lewis says it's really, in many ways, the most precious love. in that it's based on our choices. We choose our friends. And he says true friendship is much more than just companionship or camaraderie. It usually involves shared values, something that you value together with someone else, or shared activities. You're thrown together in the military, and you've got or in a team, your teammates, etc. So later, parents and grandparents' influence often fades with children as their friendships and peer groups grow. And so elders have an opportunity to serve their youngers that are facing pains, broken friendships, and rejections. And we have a unique way of being able to help enter into that situation and provide them with, it's going to be okay. I've been through this, and I feel your pain, and I know that you've got a loss going on, but you know what? It's going to get better. It's okay, and this is normal. Rather than, as you know, many children, when they go through a trauma, they just fall apart, thinking there's no tomorrow, that he doesn't love me anymore, she doesn't love me, whatever. I've had 4 daughters. I know a lot about that. I've heard a lot about that. And so, being compassionate to that. But we have to use the opportunity when we have it with the kids, when they'll listen to us. Later on, they're going to be more listening to their friends and other people, social influencers, etc., etc. It's kind of sad, but another important part of youthful education is learning how to treat the opposite sex, dating and romance. And my parents never taught me much about it. I think probably parents of girls get more training on it than guys, just in general. But parents often set certain boundaries, for our kids, and they may or may not adhere to them, as I found with teenage girls that were kind of run amok at a certain point. But these precious teenage years offer elders an opportunity to model for the youngers the healthy healing of heartbreaks, forgiveness, and bad behavior, as well as a safe harbor for unconditional love when they are hurt and needing that. So, childhood is, a delicate time. We don't realize how fragile life is until we really step back and look at it. But as a youth, it didn't take much for us to feel put down by somebody, and it's so encouraging that that parents and grandparents can serve to be healing balm on those wounds and things like that. So that's all I was really going to cover on this particular part of learning what's caught and taught. I started a new book this week. I felt so happy to be done with my autobiography. Well, done for now. I sent it off to the printer, so hopefully by either next week or the week after, I will have copies of it. Not that I'm, you may or may not like it. I'm happy to send. I think I did send you a draft of it anyway, electronically, but I'm going to be excited to give it to all my family. And then also the curriculum for this class is all in a little booklet that I'll be doing for classes going forward, so I don't have to hand out all these sheets. So this has been our sort of our pioneer class, so to speak, of putting this together. But anyway, so I had time to start a new book. One of my great hobbies is reading and then writing book reviews. And this one I want to recommend. It's entitled Undefended Love. And it's a great title. A lot of really great books are 1, 2, or 3 word titles because they really resonate. It's written by a couple of PhD psychologists that do counseling and workshops, Jen Saris and Marlena Lyons. They both have PhDs. They look quite young for the wisdom that's in here. And just a little bit on the back cover, so an inspiring and practical approach to lasting, loving relationships. The writing is crisp, the message clear, the effect profound. Nice short review there. Another one here. This is a remarkable book. It's full of warmth and humanity while also being wise and insightful, and obviously the product of real-world experience in healing broken relationships. it is one of those rare books that can actually change lives. So I've just gotten through so far the introduction and the first chapter or so, but they talk about how the yearning of the human heart is twofold, to be loved unconditionally and to express deep love to others. And the thing that stops that, the biggest takeaway from the book so far, is the defenses that we put around our heart and our mind to protect us from not exposing too much and getting hurt from other people. And so those very things that protect us are also the things that prevent us from having deep relationships and closeness. And so they systematically, I think, in the rest of the book explain how to drop those defenses in a way that is beneficial to accomplish what you want. And I am enjoying it, and I'll probably do a book review of it later. But it starts off in the foreword: humans demand more from love every day. Human beings are created, or we created romantic love just 300 years ago. So imagine, in all of history, romantic love, or the romanticism of finding this ideal soulmate, never existed. It was a figment of imagination. You married people for it was more practical, and a lot of times parents arranged it. But it said just in the last 300 years we've been loading it down with more and more baggage every day. And today we're inundated with images and hopes about love's promise that we can usually miss love's true purpose. And they go on to say, love's true purpose is so that we reveal and understand our true self. That's the purpose of love. And so it says, undefended love clears the gnarled bramble of all of our romantic illusions, a thorny patch that currently traps many of us, resulting in more than 50% divorce rate. I mean, it's obvious to most people that whatever we're doing is not working, as far as, whether it's online dating or whatever. But anyway, they go on to talk about the, the love's true purpose is to free the essential self, or your true self. So I know that I'm going to enjoy this book because it resonates with other things that I already know, but it's good to hear it from people who are in the thick of it every day, counseling people, etc. And so, undefended love.
Dave, while you're talking about that, 300 years ago was the first real discussion of romantic love. Who were some of the forefront authors and poets that started that back then?
Well, it was, pardon me?
I mean, the names of them, like Browning and what are some of the other ones that go back, way back?
The era of Romanticism, the Enlightenment kind of went hand in hand, and I can't really name specific authors that I think, but it just began to grow. It's a very nice notion, like Plato had, that we have this perfect other person for us, and especially when we encounter problems in our relationship, to chuck the current one in favor of finding one better is a nice thought. But it usually, if you examine it, just leads to a string of always looking for somebody better, and it never pans out. So it'd be an interesting study. Now that I've read that, it's the first time I've heard anybody identify actually the origin of it. So I'm personally looking forward to hearing and learning more about it. Another good book that I recently read, entitled The Couples Workbook, by a think tank out of London called The School of Life. The Couples Workbook. And it has like 38 little short chapters that have exercises for couples to do together to really get down to their true self, to drop these defenses. So it's actually a practical book that reinforces the message of this. And so I'm looking forward, that's why I'm looking forward to this, because I know, and I did write a review on that one, and fairly detailed review, and actually sent copies of it to my grown children and married grandchildren, because I thought, you know, if I had known now what I know, known then what I know now, I might have been able to salvage. I've been married twice, and so it's possible that things could have been worked through had I had the tools to do it instead of giving up, which is what a lot of people do too easily and too often. And the opening line in this couple's workbook is, that love is much less of a emotion than it is, a lifetime project. And it's one of their lines is that I can't think of it now, but the point of it is that a good close relationship is more about working on it than it is on expecting it to just happen and to just be there. And so we expect a lot of love as demonstrated in mass media and in the popular culture, more than it can ever deliver. And so we're just shooting ourselves in the foot, and we need a new plan, a new strategy. And sadly, by the time most people figure it out by doing it wrong, then next time around we figure we'll do it better. And so that's kind of, we go through these processes. So does anybody have a memoir from their childhood that they want to share this week? I'd love to hear it. How are we doing on, this is class 7, and again, in my theoretical world, we at class 8 we'll all have 50 memoirs done. I know that I put a lot more time in it in order to get mine done, but I want to, by next week, hopefully have a copy to actually show you what it can look like printed, and that it is possible to do it, but I put in many more hours than we are in this class. So, what are you finding?
I am having trouble with time management and doing it. Scheduling it, for a particular time of day, or I just wondered what other people are doing about that. Maybe your ideas could give me a clue about what I'm doing or not doing that I need to be in order to accomplish it.
I think, I know I have times that I'm very, very productive and very, very creative.
Mm-hmm.
And so the problem is I have a lot to do during my creative periods.
That's
But,
it,
right? So I think that if you can, I was talking to someone about creating a schedule that's not like a normal calendar, but creating just when are my creative space is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then say, okay, well, that would be a creative time. I would do this or I would do that. Like, I've been working on a booklet at the church. We're putting out a soils booklet, and so we're going to get that printed. And so I've already worked on that this morning, and I've already called the printer, done the checks from wherever and all that stuff. So there's a point in your time when you're creative, and then there's a point when you're just having errands, and then there's social time, and then frankly there's end of the day time, and I don't use end of the day time very well.
No, I don't either.
Because I just kind of figure that
You deserve to
I deserve to
kick
just
back.
kick back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think,
Binge watching or something.
yeah, binge watch. Yeah, I do that very well. I'm doing research, but I think that's kind of the way to be not not blame yourself that you're not getting it done. Just figure, yeah, so don't blame yourself, because after all, we found out St. Augustine invented original sin, and there really is no original sin, and and therefore we don't need to have guilt, because we're all perfect anyway. So anyway, but just say, okay, in that block of time that is creative for me, what am I
How
gonna
will I
do?
divide it up?
What am I gonna do?
Mhm.
Yeah, and how am I gonna divide it up? And that would give you a little bit more comfort, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a good strategy. Yeah, everybody's schedule varies, you know, some days are busier than others. Sometimes doing something daily is not as feasible. You know, if you can clump together your errands instead of spreading them out, then sometimes you can create some time that, you know, is more efficiently determined. For me, I think the mornings are a time when my mind is less cluttered with whatever the calendar has on it for me. So I found that my time writing in the morning, making it a priority, you know, Mark Twain said we're about as happy as we want to be, or we decide to be. I think it's also true in, you know, we get done what we really decide is important to do in a day. If something's important, we do it, and we somehow find a place for it. And if it isn't, then it gets shoved into the next day. And as a procrastinator, I can swear to that as being true. But it doesn't, you know, there's no one way to do it that works for everyone. And I think anybody else have anything that's working for you? Like Phil says, how's that working for you?
I was telling Mary Ann, I have a complete lack of self-control sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I'm a great procrastinator too.
Mm-hmm.
And so after church, I said to the people that I was visiting with, I gotta get home, because I've blocked off on my calendar that I'm going to do nothing but write about my childhood history this afternoon, as long as it takes. And they said, you mean you're not going to St. Barbara's for the Greek festival? And I said, why would I want to do that? And they said, well, they told me the years they've gone, and it's fantastic. So well, I'll go for a little while.
Right.
And so I follow them up there, and of course it's the biggest crowd I ever saw, you know, and it's the most great food that you'll see in one place, and the dancing was gorgeous, and the costumes are great. And so I got home late, and I called my friend to see if she got home all right, and she said, okay. I said, well, I'm going to bed now, and she said, what? You're not gonna watch the last episode of All Things Bright and Beautiful? Oh, okay, so I turned that on.
Right, you do.
Very good, wasn't it? And so then I was tired, went to bed, said, I'll get up this morning and do it. I didn't wake up in time. So that's my excuse, but one of these days, I'm gonna do it right, and read all of your stuff first before I start in on it. Next week, I promise.
That's okay. You know, it's realizing that you have things that are stumbling is the first step to doing something about it. And a lot of people, you know, they kind of just go through their day. But yeah, these unexpected things that come up in life are great robbers of our time and our schedule. And so we have to at some point be either harsh on ourselves and say, no, I can't do that even though I would prefer to, or just say, you know what, I'll get this done, it's a priority, but I'm trying to be present to the day and what it brings forward as much as working on something like this, which is a delayed gratification, so to speak.
Right.
It's gonna take a while, and so I get it, it can be easy to get distracted. And
The other thing is, I always found, when I left my first husband many years ago, I was he didn't wanna have babies and I wanted to have babies,
Mhm.
so that made sense. So, but I read 200 self-help books, cause I was gonna figure out what's the answer here. So I found out that the happiest people were the most creative people. So therefore, it was a lot more creative for you to go to the Greek festival, right?
You know, I think so, and in retrospect, yeah.
Yeah.
boy, I
And
know,
it certainly expanded you,
Yeah,
right? And so I always pick creative, I always pick social,
Mhm.
I always pick what's gonna expand me.
Mhm.
Before, I pick how am I going to be creative by myself, right? Because being creative by myself is kind of going internally. And yes, that's growth. And yes, you kind of go on a spiritual journey as you're writing kind of
Mhm.
thing. But that is personal time for me. Then that, you know, I would pick a social event every time. I would pick
Mhm.
that first.
Well, yeah, in a way, you're making new memories that can be written about at a later
that's
time
true.
Yeah.
versus reflecting on what you already have experienced.
Mhm.
Yeah.
One way, if you have a smartphone, that you could maybe utilize driving time even would be to turn your phone on record and just say, you know what, this Greek festival I went to today reminds me of, and then go ahead and record it into text onto your phone while you're driving or talking to somebody else. And so you're actually, when I say write it down, it could be verbalizing,
Yeah,
not
right.
necessarily writing. That's a
Mhm.
way that we can utilize and maybe be a good steward of our time, otherwise just chit-chatting or listening to music or something, which I do a lot of because I love music, so.
Mm.
But, yeah, so did you want to share something?
I guess I'll share mine. This is a little, it jumps around a little bit, so
Okay.
it may need some more work.
No, that's
Because
okay.
I'm finding I get in tangents, you know, and then I'm all over the place. I was around 4 years old when I had my first memory. My dad had been away in the Navy for years. One day he walked in the front door holding a pair of wooden shoes from Holland and a little Red Riding Hood cape from Spain. I just remember being so happy. Daddy lifted me up in his arms. He was 6'6". I enjoyed when he held me up. That was one of my favorite memories of him. Later, Mom and Dad disciplined us. They were very strict. We seemed to always be in trouble, getting punished for simple things. My brother misbehaved a lot, so he was always getting whipped or sent to his room. I cried many nights and pleaded with him to please be good. At times, I felt no love from Mom and Dad. They fought a lot, mostly over money. Dad was a policeman and worked around town performing as Johnny Cash and Elvis, but we didn't have much money. Mom just stayed home and watched us. There were 3 of us. I was the oldest, then there was my brother, then my younger sister, Carrie, who was 5 years younger, and baby Kelly. But baby Kelly, when I was 8 years old, she died of a heart defect. I loved her so much, and it broke my heart. We lived in a house of grief and pain afterwards. There were no counselors, there was no help. We just grieved and didn't know what to do. So part of my childhood was very sad. Mom went to bed and took aspirin all day. I took care of my brother and sister, made lunches and cleaned. But something wonderful happened to us. A family of 4 girls, just my age, moved in across the street. I had girls to play with all day. We played Barbies, paper dolls, went in the pool. It was what saved me from my sadness.
Oh, great, thank
And I
you.
feel like there's more I could write into that, but I just haven't picked it apart yet.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
that's very
very
good.
good.
Yeah,
That's
it
very
is.
good.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Terrific.
absolutely.
Yes.
Because what you're talking about are the emotions that you felt. And,
Yeah.
You know, and that was what.
But this is helping me, you know, because
Yes,
some of these things I've never said to anybody, because I can't tell to my family,
right.
and I don't wanna hurt anybody by saying it, so I can come here and I feel like it's okay to talk about, and I can get some of this out, you know, that's been just sitting there for
Absolutely.
year after year after year, you know?
And with your friends, you had what I was saying just there, that, or going to the Greek festival, you were with your friends
Yeah,
and you were surrounded by, creative ways to play,
yeah,
right? And you were supported,
yeah, it was
And-
wonderful.
and they were happy to have you because you were new, because you were
Yeah.
being creative. And so that energy and that choice for you was very important.
It was,
Mhm.
yeah.
It's so funny, you know, you wrote about, one of your first memories was your father in his uniform. Yesterday, I was writing on historical events, and I wrote, my father coming home with his army uniform on, picking me up, hugging me, and tossing me in the air. Isn't that
Yeah,
interesting?
it's the same,
It's funny.
it's the
Yeah.
same memory, yeah,
Yeah.
being up there on top and looking down.
Yeah, and also, I don't know how old you are, but my father had just come back from France during World War II, when that happened.
Yeah.
So he'd been gone a long time, obviously.
Wonderful. I think one of my first memories with my dad, and fond memories, was he had an old Studebaker station wagon, I think it was, and he would let me sit on his lap and steer while we're actually going down the road, and I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
I had this sense of power, you know, that wow, I'm in control, you know, and yet he's there with his big hand in case I screw up or something. But I think I was only probably about 2 or 3, but yeah, so these early, like I got a text from my youngest daughter this morning that just 4 words: "I miss you, Dad," and a little sad face, and I'm, you know, I wrote her back saying, you know, I miss you too, because we're very close, and you know, I had been thinking a lot about her, because as the youngest, I had 3 daughters and then 1 later, sort of a do-over dad, as it were, and so it's different because you have all this time now, because you're later in life and your career's established, whereas the others I had very young and I was really struggling. So I'm juggling kids and career and education and everything all at the same time. And the girls came boom, boom, boom. You know, by 25 I had 3 kids. And so, and then Breda comes when I'm 50. And so it's a whole different world. I could take time to read to her, take her for hikes every day, watch dinosaur movies, whatever. And so you build a little bit different, more special bond. And kind of, as I was reflecting on in one of my memoirs, that my only regret was that I couldn't spend the same amount of time with the other daughters that I did with the younger daughter. And but thankfully, all of my other daughters embraced her and weren't jealous of her or anything else. They rejoiced that she could spend that much time with Dad, and we're all close now. But it was, yeah. So just little things, little memories of somebody's heartfelt emotions toward you is what, you know, what makes our memories so valuable to us and to others. And so I wrote her back saying how much I appreciate her and look forward to seeing her, and I'm going to FaceTime her. This Wednesday is my birthday, so I'll be the big 7-0.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. I made it. I still have more to do, evidently, and you know, we celebrating with my daughter and granddaughter that live here. But you know, I'm going to be FaceTiming with everyone else, I'm sure. So, anybody else want to share a childhood memory? I don't know how much time we have here. Let's see. Oh, it's 11:48 already. Now it's time to say goodnight to all our company. So maybe memories on watching the Mickey Mouse Club when you were little.
Yeah.
Ooh, fantasizing about Annette Funicello or. This is fun.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is fun. It's a
And I'm
nice,
so
wonderful
glad
class.
Well-
And they're okay with continuing the class beyond.
Oh, good,
the
well, I
8
would
years.
love it if we could
Good.
continue
Yeah,
the class.
and maybe I'll see if they can do a little bit more of a promotional push to get some other new people about it. Because I really do think it's so valuable at this time of life for us to write it down or speak it out. And sometimes doing both.
Yeah,
And maybe what you do is you just make it a little bit different title,
Mhm.
so people, or you could say telling your life story number 2, or you could say sharing your life story or something.
Yeah,
And then that way, that way people who've already taken it can know that they
Right.
would still take
well,
it.
the little booklet that I did to summarize the class, I entitled Telling Your Life Story.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's a slight variation.
Yeah.
Not much, but very
Yeah.
good. And I just titled my autobiography, The Story of My Life.
Mhm.
I just figured that's the simplest 5 words to describe what it is, and keep it simple is my motto in life, so.
Well, good, yeah, so I definitely would
Okay,
continue coming.
good. All right then, until next week, write, or speak it out into your phone. That's easier
That's
and
a good
maybe.
idea.
yeah,
I read a lot of book reviews, and I'm finding myself, because I underline the things in the book that I want to go back to, so I can just speak those things, and then it'll turn it into text, and I can write about it later on instead of scribbling out notes. So I'm starting to use that a little bit more. I never have used it that much on the phone, but heck, it's a great technology. We might as well use it.
Yeah.
Amen.
Alrighty,
So,
have a wonderful President's Day.
Yeah, so to do that, you just go to text message and hit the speaker one.
Hit the little
Or
microphone,
notes.
the little microphone that's in
Yeah.
the bottom.
Can
And
you do it with notes?
Yes.
also?
You can
You
do
can
it
do
with
it with
notes
notes.
and with emails, either one. I
Okay.
think. Yeah.
Cause that's